Hello, I'm Howard Mann, creator of Conscious Shifting, and welcome to Conscious Shifting. Before we get started, a quick warning and disclaimer. Conscious shifting and all known side effects will improve your physical, mental, and spiritual health while providing the ideal environment for spiritual awakening, helping you to live the life of your dreams and influence the world in a positive way. So, if this is something that interests you, something you'd like to be a part of, then you can either follow us on Facebook or subscribe on YouTube, and then join us here Wednesday nights, 6 p.m. California time for Conscious Shifting. The best way to communicate with us is through the comment box, either during a live, during the replay of the live, or on any of our daily thought-provoking posts. Place your question in the comment box and we will answer it from a spiritual perspective. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Everybody take a deep breath way down to the lower energy center, just below the belly button, and relax. And another big deep breath. And relax, letting all tension go out with the breath. One more time, big deep breath. And relax. All right. So hopefully everybody's feeling good. Hi, Kathy. I see you in here. Let's go ahead and get started. Hi, Christina. Tonight's topic is 5 life lessons learned from losing everything. So imagine this. You're living your life. You feel like you have it all. You have a great job, a great house, family, friends. You're healthy. You're loving your life. You feel like you're on top of the world. It's awesome. In fact, you're feeling so comfortable with it that you start to take it for granted. You feel as if nothing could ever take this away from you. But then it happens. Life decides to body slam you and you lose everything. It happened to many of us during the financial crisis of 2008. Thoughts of being indestructible painfully fade away. They are sadly replaced with fear and confusion. Why did this happen? How could this happen? This is impossible. The Great Recession of 2008 was very difficult for almost everyone I knew. A real wake-up call. The biggest club was the one I was in, and it was called Complete Financial Annihilation. That's what I mean when I say life lessons learned from losing everything. Hi, Kim. I literally did lose everything, or at least I thought so. I thought so. And that's really what the life's about, because although I had a lot of deep spiritual beliefs, I was about ready to understand them on much deeper levels. And through that process, lived through something that was horrific. I don't know how many of you remember 2008 and the financial crisis. Suicides went through the roof. People were getting wiped out left and right. I lost my business, my home, and my retirement. 30 years of busting my butt shot to hell. I was left wondering how I was going to take care of my wife and 4 children. Where would we live? What would we eat? It sucked. I went from 30 years in construction as a contractor to begging everyone I knew for any work that they had. And everyone was counting their pennies. Jobs were paying next to nothing. I might as well have made a sign that said, "We'll work for food," because that's about what we were doing. And I mean working day and night. And this went on for several years. The next bombshell to drop was that the Red Cross told me they could no longer accept my blood donation. I gave blood every month. I have really unique blood and they can use it for AIDS patients and preemies. So they loved when I came in there, and I made it a point to go in every single month and donate blood. Not for money. I just gave it to them. And they told me they could no longer take my blood because my vitals were indicating an impending heart attack. Nice, right? And and I don't mean that it was like these are in, dangerous territory. They wanted to drive me to the emergency room, which was right across the street. And I started laughing at them. I said, "You got to be kidding. It's right across the street." They said, "We don't think you're going to make it." That's how much stress I was under. And the icing on the cake, as if that wasn't enough, I was rear-ended in a traffic accident, which blew my lower spine apart. I ended up having extensive reconstructive surgery. It did stabilize my back, but I was left with residual pain issues, nerve damage, and partial paralysis in my legs and feet. So you talk about your road bumps. There I was sitting in the middle of life, and all the wheels had fallen off the cart. I was broke, out of work, basically homeless, and I could barely walk. Now what? Everything I knew was no longer working. And all the stuff that I associated with my sense of self was gone. But I was still here. And it dawned on me I was still here. And that realization changed my life in ways that I couldn't have foreseen. When I talk about spiritual awakening and you just start to understand even things that you understood before on much deeper levels, this was one of those situations. And so I'm going to go through 5 things tonight to help you see how situations are not always what they seem, and that they can actually be opportunities for the greatest growth spurt you'll ever have. The bigger the lesson, the more opportunity there is. I didn't include that in this, but that is one of the lessons I learned as well. Hi, Susan. How you doing? All right. So the first one, the first one is that we never really lose anything. And I know you're going to say, well, wait a minute. And that's not true. I've lost things, I've had them stolen, but on a spiritual level, that's the thing. There's what goes on in the physical world, and then there's the spiritual realities, which is a much bigger reality. Hi, Donna. Welcome. So the first hurdle is the feeling of loss. It reminds us of other times when something that we greatly valued was stolen or lost. And the feeling that we get is if part of us is dying. Well, in those situations, part of you is dying, but it's a false sense of self that's dying. The part of you that's falsely identified with the object, as if it has something to do with your identity, as if your life is based upon it. None of that's true. And the proof is that when the object is gone, you're still here. Therefore, any delusion about self being dependent upon the object is false. I lived with my wife in that house. We raised our 4 sons in that house. There's a lot of memories there, but those memories still exist. None of them have changed in any way. They haven't been stolen or lost. All those moments still exist exactly as they always have. But we have moved on. Now we are in this moment, and in this moment, we no longer live in that house. Now, whether we're talking about a house, a job, a business, a relationship, or even our mind body, that truth rings true. Nothing in the physical world has anything to do with who we are. Nothing. And nothing in the physical world remains the same. And since there is no permanency, nothing can really be lost, because the idea that you had it, possessed it for all of eternity was a lie. Everything here is temporary. So if you don't actually possess something, then you can't really lose it either. It's just these things come and go. Life's in a constant state of change. And moment to moment, everything is changing. We don't always see it that way. And hence the illusion. We think that there's things that are permanent, that are concrete, that never change. None of that's true. However, we exist as a constant in our life. Material stuff is only here to support the life that's going on in the moment. But in no moment is material life stuff, or is material stuff life. Let me repeat that. Material stuff is only there to support the life going on at that moment. But in no moment is material stuff life. Physical existence is temporary. Spiritual existence is eternal. So if you want to latch on to something real, something that never changes, then your spiritual identity is that you should be latching onto, because it's the only thing that'll never change. So that's lesson number one. We never really lose anything. Yep, I see you, and anything you post, I can see. I don't know. I didn't realize this, but I'm going to start spreading out to other social media platforms, and some of the stuff is going to be on the website. There may be podcasts. There's the books, because things are always changing, like we're talking about, and there may come a time when one may not be what it is now. And so, even if you don't necessarily usually watch on YouTube, it's probably not a bad idea to subscribe on YouTube and to make note of the website and the email address, so that we can stay in contact as these things that are about to happen on planet Earth happen. Maybe Facebook will be fine and we'll just continue on, but maybe it won't. But when I started streaming to YouTube, I can stream there simultaneously, but unfortunately from YouTube you don't see the Facebook comments, and I don't think that the Facebook people on Facebook see the YouTube comments. But I see both. So I can read questions out loud, and then everybody can benefit from them. So number 2, life happens through us, not to us. Contrary to what seems to be, life is not a series of events happening to us. In fact, we attract people and events into our life. Our level of consciousness has a corresponding energetic field. This field influences everything and everyone around us. And it can be more negative or positive depending on our mindset. And this way, we have an input into all that happens. Call it karma, accountability, or just plain consequence. But our thoughts influence our world. That's not to say that we have total control. Our field influences. Everyone has a field that influences. After that, whatever happens is what happens. So the world reality is actually a collective reality that's co-created by all of us. But the way we personally experience it has to do with our own field. Each field has its own set of beliefs, and so each field generates certain thoughts and emotions. You're going to experience it through those. Now, if you're aware, if you're conscious, you can kind of say, well, that's kind of destructive. So let me think of a more constructive way to see the same situation. And that's what I suggest. But this field is what's really doing the attraction. And we're aware of it or not, this is going on. So the thing is, though, that when you look at your life, where you are, what you're doing, who you're associating with in any moment is entirely up to you. And that's going to have more bearing on your life than anything else. So to some extent, we can complain about our circumstances and things that happen, but who's the one that decided to be there at that moment or living in that house or in that city or in that relationship or in that career? Well, we do. And there's consequences to that. So we have far more control than what we realize. What we believe determines our thoughts determine our actions, and our actions have consequences. Beyond that, though, we can control how we react. Our reactions have a tremendous influence on our health, our life, and our world. There's what happens, but more importantly, there's how we react to what happens. And understanding this changes everything. Simply put, our outer world is a reflection of our inner world. And so if we don't like what's going on out there, then we really ought to address what's going on in here. Now, people will say, well, I didn't make that person do that. Not directly, but indirectly you did. You're part of the event. So you must have. I know this is a little out there, but when you really get this, it changes everything. You have to accept responsibility for whatever vibe you're putting out into the world. And believe it or not, the things that you see in the world and you have a negative reaction to, you're really putting energy into and helping to create that very thing. And it is a kind of a collective, like if war was to break out, it's hard to pin it on one person, but we all believe in warfare. We all believe in these skirmishes that are going on, and we all believe in the escalation. We all, participate in a system where we build militaries, and so we all play into it. How you view those events determines the influence that you have on them. For example, if the world were to rise in consciousness to the point to where they understood that there's some bad actors in the world and we can't condone hurtful behavior, but we're going to try to deal with everything from a place of love and compassion and understanding first, and try to defuse the situation before it ever escalates into anything that could result in going to war, chances are we would no longer have warfare. We would find other ways to settle our differences. So when we're connected to source, spirit flows through our mind, body, and into this physical world. When we're not connected to source, then we're ego driven. And things that appear to us to be negative, harmful, aggressive are not of spirit, they're of ego. And it's our creation. It's what we're doing with the power of our minds and the energy that we put off into creating this reality. So we have to own that. And if you're reacting negatively to something, chances are you would get further by asking what it is inside of you that is being triggered by that, and why are you being triggered? Because that's the part that you're playing into that equation. And that you have some control over. There might be 100 million people playing into that event. But if you were to heal what's in here, there'd be one less. And so enough people do that, and you're going to start changing the reality in which we live. But it starts here, you know, and pointing to things out there is trying to redirect the responsibility. And it's never going to get the job done. Never. We're just going to keep going like we are until people start owning it and doing the inner work and then projecting something different, bringing to the collective something other than what we currently have. What's going on is unknown. The potential is in the unknown. In the spiritual realm is all potential, and there's different information there. And if we identify with that and bring that down to the physical realm, then things are going to change. So that's kind of a big one. Life happens through us, not to us. It's a completely different way in looking at things. Yeah, the new book, Susan. Hi, Chad. Welcome. The new book will be publishing next month. And so, since you bring it up, anybody interested in being on the launch team, it's real easy. But if you're interested, email me. The email address is on the page, but it's contact@consciousshifting.org. And I'll shoot you the information. You can decide, but it's easy, and I'll gift you a copy of a paperback version of it for doing that. I don't know how many of you are aware of it, but when a new book comes out, there's no reviews. So, people look at it and they go, it might be a good book, but there's no reviews. So if you can get some reviews real quick, then it helps people decide whether that book's for them or not. And so that's really what the launch team is all about, is helping to do that for the book. Number 3, resistance is futile. It's actually ripping off a Darth Vader quote, but it works. Resistance is futile. Resistance is fear. And think of a negative emotion. It's a manifestation of fear. For example, resentment, anger, anxiety, all forms of resistance based in fear. Fear causes stress and mayhem. Resistance is futile because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Resistance will create the very thing we wish to avoid. When we resist something, we put more energy into it. What we put our energy into, we create more of. The only way to avoid putting more energy into something is acceptance, not in surrender, as in defeat, but in understanding, accepting what is, accepting what is to be, rather than resisting it. And whether we like it or not, it's irrelevant. Fairness, right, and wrong have absolutely nothing to do with it. We either accept what is or deny what is. But what is. Judgment of the present is resistance to the present. Resistance and denial not only continue, but expand our suffering. It's what's really causing it in the first place. This doesn't mean that we should embrace or participate in things that are not for the greater good, only that we acknowledge their existence. And once we acknowledge and accept what is, then we're free. We no longer carry around the emotional baggage of the past or future. What can then become all that it can be, because we bring a higher version of ourselves to the moment. You see that? We bring a higher version of ourselves to the moment. So rather than the resistance and fear and the anger and the hatred and everything else, we can bring love to any situation. And memories are not life. They are reflections of moments in life. This moment is life. This moment. And so there's no point in harping on things that have that are not happening right now. It doesn't do any good. It only creates tension in this moment. It drags past problems into the present moment and creates problems in the present. We can generate a lot of pain in this moment by resisting it. But this moment is life. At this moment is where it happens. We can resist this moment and cause a lot of pain, or we can move into this moment and enjoy the peace that comes with that. And at this moment, if we heal this emotional trauma that we have, it's like time traveling into the past and the future and healing those timelines as well. This moment is the PowerPoint to all timelines. You can't go back in the past and undo what was done, but you can make it meaningful. You can't travel into the future, but you can create a better future by healing in the present, so that as the future unfolds, it's going to be a higher vibrating reality than it would have otherwise been. This moment is where all the power is. It's not about dreaming about going back and redoing something. And it's not about trying to wish or create something different in the future. It's strictly in this moment. This is all that matters. What we're doing right now. And that's going to take care of everything, one way or another, for better or for worse. Christina, how can we create our own life by thinking things and put that in the universe when God has already written our story of life? Well, it's not really that concrete. When I say that all of the potential is in the spirit realm, it's exactly what I mean. Yes, there are possibilities. There's nothing but possibilities. But the higher level of consciousness that we are, the higher the potential that we're going to be accessing. And within that potential, within that higher energy is higher information. So when we bring that into the physical world, it's gonna result in change. You see that? There's tell me if I'm not making sense to you, or what part of it is not. But right now, what's going on is the known. We hold a level of consciousness that has beliefs and thoughts and emotions and actions. And through all of that, we're creating this reality. This reality is a known. It's where we're rolling, where we operate at. In the spiritual realm is the potential for a higher reality. An extreme case would be heaven on earth, as opposed to this, which you could argue is hell on earth as it exists right now. That information exists in the potential, but it's not in the level of consciousness that we're operating from right now. Otherwise, that would be the reality. So the solution to lower consciousness is higher consciousness. We rise into higher consciousness that has higher beliefs, thoughts, and emotions. There's higher information that when we become that, that's the vibe we put off. That's what we manifest. So it's kind of like the energy. To explain it in physics terms, atoms have electrons orbiting around them. There are various combinations of protons, neutrons, and electrons, but they're nothing but energy that exists in a physical realm and a non-physical realm, which I call the spiritual realm, simultaneously. So the energy exists in both. The interesting thing is that the way they read energy in this non-form realm, non-physical realm, is a wavelength. or a frequency. When that crashes, it becomes energy in the particle form, which we perceive as solid matter. It's because there's information in that energy. Each atom vibrates at its own frequency. Within that is information. Energy carries information with it. And so if you're accessing higher energy, and that's what you're bringing into the physical realm, you're going to manifest a higher reality. That's kind of a physics explanation, throwing a little bit of spiritual beliefs in there. They talk more in terms of non-physical realm and energy crashing and becoming particle. But what they're really talking about is this energy in a non-physical realm, which I call the spiritual realm, becoming energy in the particle form, which is the material world. That's why I say spirit manifests as the universe and everything in it. Now, the more connected we are, spirit, the higher the level of consciousness, the higher the energy that we're going to be in contact with, and the higher the reality we're going to create. It's not really God's doing. Not in the sense that God is this entity separate from us. We're all part of it. So this is um, a collective co-creation, if you will. That's why I say it's not really that concrete. If we were to continue doing everything that we are right now and maintain the same beliefs, this will just continue like this. To create change, we have to question what's destructive and become different people, people that rise in consciousness and then manifest accordingly. The manifestation we don't really have to worry about. It happens on its own. It's what we hold in here. Our level of consciousness, that's this energetic field I'm talking about. It does the work. You can call it God if you want, but it's based on our level of consciousness. And God, I don't understand as being personable the way a lot of people will, they project onto God human characteristics. God is just this consciousness, this supreme consciousness that we're all a part of. But if anything, is accommodating. Whatever level we're at, that's what we're going to create. It's not God doing it or God preventing it from happening either. It's whatever we do, we do. I hope that helps. Yeah, Kim says because we have free will and choice, we change our destiny by making said choices. Exactly. So, I explain it in levels of consciousness, in terms of consciousness. But you could say, well, I choose something of a higher order. If you do, then you're actually operating at a higher level of consciousness. And so that's what you're going to manifest. Number 4, bad things happen for a good reason. This one's kind of rough too, but if you understand these truths, or you can at least begin to understand them, they're going to make a huge difference in your life. A huge difference. And you're going to really speed up your awakening. We like to think that we attract what we want. And there's seminars you can go to, for $500. I'll teach you how to manifest a new car, right? This kind of stuff. But the truth is that we actually attract what we are. Going back to that level of consciousness I was just talking about. And what we are determines what we need. And this is where it starts getting real interesting. So we attract what we are, like saying we create the level of consciousness that we exist at, or the level of consciousness manifests the reality based on the level of consciousness that we hold. But it also determines what we need. And this gets to the bad things happening for a good reason. What we need is the opportunity to rise in consciousness. What we need is the opportunity to become what we can be, to use that free will to choose something different than we've been choosing. And the universe will accommodate accordingly. The universe will knock on the door. And the question is, will you answer? Now, going back to when I was losing all this stuff, I was a far more determined person in a sense than I am now, but not the determination in the sense of control and thinking that I could make things happen. So, you know, when the door was being knocked on, I was too busy trying to force reality to conform to my will. That's an egotistical perspective, big time. That is classic identification with ego. And in these cases, the universe is going to knock louder and louder. And in my case, that didn't work either. So the universe kicked in the door because that's what I needed. If we fail to learn the lessons of life, they will be repeated until we do. Sometimes rock bottom is necessary. I lost everything, or at least I thought I did at the time. My home, my business, my savings, my retirement. The only thing I had was an impending heart attack, partial paralysis, and a marriage that was suffering, and kids that were getting out of control. And finally, the universe had my attention. I was losing everything. I had nothing. And just everything had been taken away. And I was in a real predicament. And sometimes, if you're stubborn enough, that's what it takes. That's what you need. You need to get body slammed by the universe. You need to lose everything and have everything that you hold dear to your heart riding off into the sunset. The thing is that at that point, you know, when you hit rock bottom like that, when you have one of these dark night of the soul experiences, um, it gets your attention, and the universe, God, finally had my attention. Sometimes you have to get broken down like that before you're willing to say, okay, what would you have me do? Because nothing I was doing was working. I was a very successful person in every endeavor I ever took. There was nothing I didn't excel at. And all of a sudden, nothing was working. Everything was being lost. Even my ability to walk. And the doctors are saying, we need to drive you across the street to ER. You're going to have a heart attack any second. You know, that gets your attention. And so that's what I call being way out of balance, way out of balance. And there's a way you can find balance. Christina asks, so what did you learn that the universe had to break you down like that to teach you what? To teach me that none of this had anything to do with who I was. None of this had anything to do with me, really. It was all just window dressing. Um, and appearances, physical appearances, but not who I was. And who I was once I started to and I had spiritual beliefs. I came into this world with them. I've done this before many times. I've been teaching people spirituality all of my life. Even when I was before I was going through this and while I was going through this. As a teenager, I would teach spirituality. As an 8-year-old, I would teach spirituality. I knew this stuff, but not on the level that I do now, and this is what it took. Life's greatest blessings come in disguise. That's a big one. That's a big one. When you understand that, you'll start looking for the opportunity in things rather than panicking and trying to get control over it and feeling sorry for yourself and all this kind of stuff. How did I find balance? Well, I was having problems being calm. I mean, I had this impending heart attack. They were freaking out. Um, Everything was out of control. I was completely and totally stressed. It was chaotic. I was having problems thinking clearly. But the thing is that I had practiced martial arts for over 20 years, and when this financial crisis started, or when it really peaked in '08, I stopped. I was teaching and competing in martial arts at very high levels. I had a lot of students, and I gave all that up trying to save all this other stuff. And I didn't save anything. I was out of balance in every way possible, and it showed. And again, our outer world is a reflection of our inner world. But the first step is to own it. You have to own where you are, honestly. You have to own where you are. And once we accept responsibility for our life, we can do something about it. And knowing exactly how is not necessary. Do you ever know anything before you know it? Of course not. You don't know what you don't know. But a good place to start is where you are. Just honestly where you are. And all the stuff I associated with my sense of self was gone, yet I was still here. So who am I? And this is where it really starts to heat up. Who am I? I wasn't a contractor because that business was gone. I wasn't a martial artist because I wasn't competing. I wasn't a martial arts instructor because I wasn't teaching. It wasn't certain that I was going to remain a husband. I wasn't a very good father at the moment because the whole house was chaotic. I wasn't a good provider. I mean, the house was gone. We didn't know where we were going to live or what we were going to eat, right? But the thing is, I was still here. And so the point is that I realized that if I'm not physical, and I mean really completely understand this, not just, yeah, I was a soul and I came into this life for a little while and then I'll go back to being my soul person again. And, I'm here to do a couple of things. No, no, that's not what I'm talking about. Not physical at all. Not before I came here, not now, and not after I leave. And I'm not physical, and if none of this physical stuff has anything to do with who I am, then I must be spiritual because if I'm non-physical, if I'm not physical, then I must be non-physical. That's basically saying spiritual, spirit. In essence, spirit. And so are you. That's why I do these lives to help awaken that. I'm aware of it now, big time. I see everything in levels of consciousness. I see everyone as how awake they are. I see everything going on in the world as a reflection of how awake people are, what their level of consciousness is. But at this moment in my life, I had exhausted physical guidance, the ways of the world, all the great thinkers. I'd exhausted it. And so I thought, well, then perhaps seeking spiritual guidance was the answer. Maybe I need help. and not from this world. And so then the question becomes, well, how exactly do we access spirit, right? If we're not physical, but we're under the assumption that we are, but when we're not, none of this physical stuff really means much. It's all just apparel. Okay, then how do we really get in touch with spirit? How do we really come into knowing who and what we are? The thing is, we're in this physical world, and the spiritual world is not the physical world. But we are spiritual, and therefore it must be within us. Even though we're in a physical body, since in essence we're spirit, then it must be within us. And we must have knowledge of it because we are it. And so I took a very deep journey inside. That's what I did. How did you do that? Okay, here we go. It's not the only way. But what I found, because it was this deep journey inside. So how did I get deep inside? Well, martial arts had taught me meditation. And so I started to meditate. Again, I had quit doing all that stuff. Proper meditation brings about a state of relaxation to the mind body. And in that relaxation, there's stillness. And when all of that stuff settles, all the chaos, it's like a pond, there's all this action and it's all stirred up and murky and you can't see an inch through it. But if you just stop all that and you just sit there, everything settles. And then vision becomes perfectly clear. You can see right to the bottom of the pond, every pebble, every little fish, everything in there. It's crystal clear. Your mind is the same way. If you settle all the distractions, you'll find clarity, mental clarity. When I did that, I started doing that. What I found was that I started having a calmness come over me. My vitals started dropping down into at least approaching a healthy range. I started understanding things. I started seeing opportunities. I started seeing hope. And I was connecting to spirit. And I was receiving information from spirit. And by not trying to control everything and not resisting everything that was going on, by just saying, okay, what would you have me do? How would you have me see this situation? How do you see it? You see the difference? Not how does Howard, with all of his worldly knowledge and experience, see things. How does spirit see it? It's a completely different way of looking at things. Yes, I'm in the physical world, but I'm a spiritual being. And spirit's much higher level of consciousness than ego. I mean, there couldn't be more difference between the two. So I started paying attention to the information I was receiving. And as a result of that, I never had that heart attack. And my vitals, over the course of about a year, I was in the normal range. Continued to improve after that. But the first month was huge difference. I have a new business and I can do it with the disabilities that I have, and I make plenty of money. And I just saw that opportunity and I started doing it, and handling the customers and the business, from a spiritual perspective, and the business just exploded. We now own our house outright. There's no mortgage here, and it's on 30 peaceful acres in the desert. There's beautiful views. My wife and I fell in love all over again, and we've never been happier than we are right now, and we've never been closer than we are right now. I started back practicing Tai Chi, even with my disabilities, and that has helped me heal um, far beyond what the medical professionals thought was possible. Basically, miracles is what we're talking here by listening to spirit. Now I do all kinds of physical stuff. Still not the way I was before all this, but and on top of that, I didn't even mention the cancer that I had that I beat. All right. So I've healed far beyond what was supposed to be medically possible. And that's really what all this conscious shifting is. It's now I'm trying to teach or show other people, share with other people how to do this, how to do this. And today I'm blessed, and so blessings, um, life's greatest blessings come in disguise. And we can believe it or we can refuse to believe. That's our choice. But either way, the results are going to speak for themselves. I don't question anything anymore. I didn't want to do these lives. I didn't want to write these books. I'd never been on social media in my life. I was directed to do it, and so I do it. Facebook's hammering me because some of the things I say, our reach is in the toilet. I still do it because whoever needs to hear this message will hear it. And same with the books, same with the other things that we're going to be involved in the future, other social media platforms, the website, blogs, podcasts, all that's going to be happening. Not because I make money at it, not because it's a business, but because I'm directed to do it. And if you want to know the truth about what I talk about, and sometimes when I hesitate, I'm waiting for spirit to guide me. I do my absolute best to get out of the way so that spirit is talking directly to you and not me. Life has a way of throwing lessons at us, and we all go through stuff. That's, sometimes it's very painful too. And we may feel as if we've lost everything, or that life is over, or that it's not worth living anymore. But none of that's true. This stuff is life. It is your life. All this stuff is your life. And we never really lose anything. Each moment is forever what it is. But life is fluid and constantly in a state of change. And so things change moment to moment. Things come and go. People come and go. We can't possibly know what we don't know. So the best we can do is adapt to the seasons of life, learn the lessons presented to us, and move on to something bigger and better. And when we accept each moment as it is, then we're free. And each new moment can blossom into its fullness because we're not running interference and trying to control it. It becomes about what is happening rather than what has happened or might happen. And resistance is futile. But when we let go of the past and the future, we make room for the present. And this is where it all happens. Life only happens in this moment. We live in this moment. And when we're present in this moment, when we're open to it, not resisting it, then we feel at peace. And that alone is worth it. That alone is worth it. Just to live in a state of peace all the time, regardless of what's going on. That alone is worth it. The magic is extra. The miracles are extra. Bad things happen for a good reason. They are the opportunities we need to become who we will become. And that's the blessing in disguise. So if you want to look for a divine plan, that's it. It's not something that happens to you. It's something that flows through you. The plan is that based on your level of consciousness, people are going to come into your life. Events and circumstances are going to manifest in your life. And within all of that, some of it horrible, some of it painful, there are opportunities for you to learn and to understand and to grow into something bigger and better. And that's the only way you can. You can't skip over this stuff. You can't suppress it. It's not going to get the job done. You have to learn it. You begin to understand it, you begin to accept it, and then you become it. And then you are that level of consciousness, a higher version of yourself. It's not just that you learn the lesson, you become the higher understanding. You become a higher truth, and then you manifest accordingly. And so it all takes care of itself. Your only job is to always look for the high road. And the way I do it is I just ask Spirit, how would you have me see this situation? What would you have me say? What would you have me do? That's what I say, and that's what I do. And the more you do it, and the more you get connected to Spirit, the easier that becomes. At first, it's a little fuzzy, and you have to learn to differentiate between your ego, your superego, and Spirit, because they're not the same. But that's the blessing in disguise, because all of this stuff is opportunities to become who we're going to become. And we can, and we can't hide from it forever. We are what we are. We can deny it for a while longer, and we can continue to suffer as a result. But sooner or later, we're going to wake up. I mean, everybody does. Everybody will. But then, as you rise in consciousness, you become a higher version of yourself. You're going to attract better things into your life, and you're going to create a higher vibrating reality. And all the material stuff that you were so concerned about will just start materializing on its own. You won't do a thing to get it. It'll just be there. Whatever you need and then some will be there. Without you stressing over it, without you fighting for it, without you killing yourself for it. That's all resistance. And when you get to a place to where you realize all this and you just allow whatever's going to be, the only thing you concern yourself with is holding your spiritual center, doing as guided by Spirit. Miracles start happening all around you, and this material stuff just, all of a sudden you got a house, you got a business. It just happens. And then you can really, truly appreciate it. Not because of the physical value, but as evidence of grace. It's Spirit showing itself to you. And so those are some of the life lessons I learned after losing what I thought was everything, almost my life included. So I hope that helps. If there's any other questions, I'll address those, but we're going to move on to a quick healing circle right now. Hi, Cheryl. Yes, miracles replace our grievances. Indeed. Awesome. Well, thank you, Susan. But Spirit deserves the credit. I'm just allowing Spirit to move through me, if you will. But I can't take credit for the information because it's not mine. The truth is not mine to own. It's only mine to share to the extent that I understand it. And so I do my best just to get out of the way, because Spirit is ultimate truth. So the better I am at getting out of the way, the more truth is going to come through, and the more everybody's going to benefit, because it's going to remind you of who and what you are. People that watch this every week, or whenever they do watch it, they're doing it because they resonate with it. It's not so much that I'm teaching you anything, it's that you're recognizing yourself in what I'm saying. You're recognizing the truth in what I say. Whether you realize it or not, you're connecting to Spirit, and you're recognizing that you are part of that is part of you. And you're drawn to it. It's like returning home. There's a comfort to it. And that's really what this whole life is about. is expressing spirit in total while in human form. So let's do it's getting late. We'll do you're welcome. Let's do a quick meditation. What we'll do here is yeah, we'll do that for those of you that want to stick around. I'll show you a basic meditation, one that'll do all the stuff, have all the side effects that we've talked about during this live. The mental clarity, the calming down of the mind body, connection to spirit, all that'll happen without you having to do anything, just by doing this simple meditation. A lot of people consider meditation to be essential for good health. It is the foundational practice for spirituality. All the masters were people who meditated. And it turns out that that state of relaxation is extremely healthy, and healing will take place in that state as well. All mental and physical diseases boil down to some kind of stress. So since that stress significantly contributes to mental and physical illnesses, meditation, because it places you in a state of relaxation, heals physical and mental disease. That alone is an excellent reason for meditating, but it's also the foundational spiritual practice. It helps you connect to spirit. Now you're probably saying, all right, yeah, but I don't want to meditate my life away. You don't have to. There's no real definitive answer on how long you should meditate, but for most people, 15 to 30 minutes is enough. That's it. But every day. You can start with less, don't set yourself up for failure. Some people can't sit still that long. Some people, they mentally get anxious because they try and force themselves to calm down. That's not what you do in meditation. You don't force anything. So maybe 5 minutes to start, but see if you can build up to at least 15. But every day, it's more important than you do it every day than how long you do it. And if you want to do it twice a day, then have 2 different times that you do it for 5 minutes to get started. There's a lot of different ways to meditate. Everybody will tell you a different way, but what I'm going to show you right now is very simple. And after years of practice and teaching it, this is what I've come up with as the basic meditation to do all that health stuff, get all those benefits, and connect to spirit in 15 minutes a day, if that's all you have. So the first thing you want to do is set up a unique space for meditation, free from clutter, distractions, and interruptions. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be a separate room, just a space where that's all you do is meditate there. And you'll notice that the energy will start shifting in that space. And you want to be able to do it when there's not distractions, unplug the phone, lock the door, do it before the kids get up, this kind of stuff. Pick a time when you can do it uninterrupted for that 15 minutes, 5 minutes, if that's all you've got. But choose at least one time and do it at that time every day. Try to be consistent. Again, it's more important that you meditate every day than how long that you meditate. And then you assume a comfortable upright position. You can sit cross-legged on the floor if that's what you want to do, and a pillow under your rump will help if you're going to do that. But most people actually prefer a chair. And if it's a really big, comfy chair, sit on the edge of it, up on the edge of it, because you don't want to fall asleep. That's not how you meditate. When I say a state of relaxation, I'm not talking about going to sleep. I'm talking about remaining alert and observing what it is that's going on, but in a relaxed state, in a calm state. So you sit on the edge of the chair. You want the spine aligned. Almost if somebody had a string going from your tailbone up your spine to the top of your skull, you just kind of went like that. Not overdoing it, not like that. shoulders down, relaxed, but spine erect, and the legs out straight in front of you, and then at a 90 down, feet flat on the floor. You don't want to get tense. You want to try and stay relaxed. Eyes and mouths gently closed. And you can focus with your eyes closed on this area right here, about or slightly above eyebrow level. Just kind of look there with your eyes closed. That helps keep your attention up. It also happens to be where most people associate their spiritual eye and higher consciousness in that part of the skull. But just to have a kind of a focal point, and your arms at your sides with the palms of your hands resting lightly, on your knees, or gently open hands. And again, the mouth and eyes gently closed. Now, you can make exceptions. I mean, if your nose is broken, breathe through the mouth. All right. But most of the time you want to breathe through the nose. And you want to breathe down to an area just below the belly button. It's as if you're inflating a balloon in your stomach. When you see people breathing and and there's all of this chest and shoulder and throat action, that's hyperventilating. That causes anxiety and stress. You want to breathe down below the belly button, and so there's hardly any movement in the upper part of the body. It might take you a little bit of practice, and then you don't force it. We don't force anything in meditation, but just subtly think about that area. And so you're drawing air through the nose down to about the belly button or a little below, and then exhale back out through your nose. You focus on the breath. It's a great focusing device, but and let it slow down on its own. It will, but don't force it. But you'll notice, just giving you a heads up, you'll notice that the breath will slow down. Sometimes it'll almost seem like you're not breathing enough, but you are. Don't worry about it. You're just very relaxed and breathing extremely efficiently. So you don't need to breathe the way most people breathe. You're probably getting more oxygen, even though it looks like you're not. So don't worry about it. And then just, settle on the relaxation that follows, remaining still. If you need to adjust your posture, scratch your nose, do it, but try to stay as still as possible. And then you just observe. You just observe whatever thoughts and emotions and bodily sensations occur without judgment, without reaction. Not that you resist them, or you try to suppress them, or you try to stop them, but you don't engage them or react either. They're not good. They're not bad. They're over there. That's all. Like clouds drifting by. Think of it that way. And if you get distracted, you find yourself having a conversation with yourself or thinking about what you got to do later tonight or tomorrow, go back to focusing on the breath. That's one of the reasons we focus on the breath, because it gives you something to think, to focus on rather than everything else. And then your thoughts will kind of slow down, and over time you'll develop this skill, and you'll be very calm mentally as a result of it, even when you're not meditating. Another benefit of meditation. No, and you can breathe through the mouth if you need to, and it really it's not so much of a spiritual requirement. The reason I say breathe through the nose is because there's hairs and mucus that filters out particulates going through the nose. It warms the air and it humidifies the air. It conditions the air before it goes down into the lungs. But if you have a broken nose or sinus problems and you can't breathe out of your nose, and just breathe through the mouth. You might get a little bit of dry mouth and throat, but just drink some water when you're done. But that's it. Then you observe your thoughts and emotions, whatever's going on, without engaging them. And if you find yourself getting distracted, go back to focusing on the breath. You just simply sit there in the stillness and observe. So let's just try it. We'll just do a minute or two. So again, comfortable upright position. Hands resting on the knees, feet flat on the ground, breathing through the nose if you can. But either way, breathing down to an area just below the belly button, and then exhale back out. Eyes gently closed. Again, breathe down there. And then exhale back out. And then another deep breath. You can even start with a mantra as you breathe in. Inhale, peace. And exhale, tension. Sometimes that's good if you really have a monkey mind. The mantra will distract your mind a little bit. Inhale, peace. And exhale, tension. And again, another deep breath way down to the belly button. And then exhale all that you no longer want, desire, require, things that no longer serve you, troublesome thoughts, disease, stress, tension, all of it out with the breath. Good way to visualize exhaling. So inhale, deep breath, exhale. Now you may already be noticing your body starting to calm down. Your mind will eventually learn to follow. Just continue breathing down to the belly button and exhale. And that's all there is to it. So I'm going to get quiet for a minute or two and just continue breathing like that. And then whatever bodily sensations you become aware of, notice them and then let them go. Whatever emotions rise into your consciousness, notice them and let them go. Whatever thoughts, notice them and let them go. So you're not resisting them, but you're not engaging them. And during this process, we'll do it for about 2 minutes. If you find yourself distracted, thinking about this or that, having a conversation, just go back to focusing on the breath. Keep putting yourself back into that place. Okay, here we go. And begin. Okay, before we close, I always like to end my meditations with sending peace and love out into the world, unconditional. Everyone, the entire planet, in fact, the entire universe, all beings, peace and love. And slowly open your eyes. So that's it. It's very simple. You can do it anywhere. Only takes a couple minutes. I'm sure most of you probably feel a little calmer than you did when we started, and that's only, a couple minutes, maybe a minute or two. So you can imagine, if you could work your way up to say, 5, 10, 15 minutes, and you did that every day, you're putting your body in that healthy state, and it's going to start lasting out into everything that you do when you're not meditating. But more importantly, you'll find that that's where you're going to connect to spiritual source. And so, that's why they call it the foundation of spiritual practice, because that's where you meet God. If I told you, yeah, every time you meditate, you're going to meet God, you'd probably be more interested in doing it. But with meditation, you don't want to have any expectations. It's about whatever it is that it is. And there'll be times where it's this really intense spiritual experience, and other times where it just calms you down. And they're both beneficial. It is what it is. It'll be what it's supposed to be, what it needs to be. But that's how you do it. So I recommend everybody does that. At least, work up to 15 minutes a day. Start with 2, 5 minutes, whatever you can do. Kim's reminding everybody to drink a full glass of water, stay hydrated, and have a great rest of the week. Susan says namaste from YouTube. And Christina says she's a little more relaxed. There you go. With only a minute or two, whatever we did. Just imagine if you did that every day over a lifetime, the difference it would make. So with that, I honor the God in you. And remember, until the next time, the only way to bring about the greater good is to be the greater good. Good night.